As a date coach and former matchmaker, I found that there's this common enemy that keeps developing between the genders. When it comes to dating, where men say that women are the problem because they have it so easy, they have their pick and they get to choose. And then women say, well, men don't want to take anything seriously and they treat dating like a game and all they want is sex. And then everyone just starts to hate on one another. But we're not really finding a productive way to have a narrative and come to a different conclusion. So my frustration is that there's a stubbornness that continues to happen where people are digging their heels in and putting up these guards where they're saying, well, the guys are the assholes and or the girls are all the problems. So like I'm not going to do anything different because they're the problem. And then we sit at this standstill where no one's doing anything and no one's being honest. And the reality is there are a portion of people that are acting inappropriately. There are men that are only after sex, that are playing games. There are women that are being overly picky or also playing games or not wanting something or dragging somebody along or a myriad of other bad behavioral patterns that are not exclusive to either gender. Like, wipe the gender narrative away. There are good people, there are bad people, there are lost people, there are found people, there are people searching for themselves that don't realize they're hurting somebody else. There are people that are in pain, recovering from a relationship that don't realize that's now bleeding on to somebody else. There's a lot of people that are completely unaware of what is happening. And there are some people that are stuck in the middle where they're like, I don't know what to do. I'm getting caught in the crosshairs and I don't really know what to do anymore. And so what I wanted to do today was talk about what it's like for both sides, because you might not be aware what men are going through. You might not be aware what women are going through. And I think it's an important conversation to have so that we can start to understand each other's plights and struggles so that that might help us avoid falling into those pitfalls if we are the other gender. And this can even, be pushed through for, homosexual dating or trans dating. There's a lot. I don't like to label things as these gendered pronouns, but there are some things that continually pop up just because hormonally men and women are different. Men and women think differently. And sure, there are some women that think more like men and some men that think more like women and everything in between because there's a spectrum. And I'm not trying to speak in absolutes, so don't come at me. But I do think it's important to understand what is happening on the other side of the coin. Because I always feel like, even in life, let's say you meet somebody and you're having a difficult time with them. Once you understand their psychology, it's much easier to work within it. So the more we can start to understand the psychology of who we're trying to be with or understand or have in our lives, the more productive we can be. So let's dive in to some of the differences of what men struggle with versus what women struggle with so we can really start to understand each other and end this war of the sexes. All right, let's start with something as simple as age. So on the male side, it's pretty much common knowledge that they are seeking younger women depending upon what their age are. And this is sometimes biological. So think about the fact that we don't have an infinite amount of time to have children. And sure, not all guys want to jump into having a child right away. So if you see somebody that's on the younger side, you have more time. Now, women obviously take this to heart because we cannot control our age, nor when we meet the love of our life. So this can be a very struggling aspect for women. But men generally go for, think about 18 to 30 can be a very desirable age group for men. Please don't take offense to this, ladies. I am going to be 37 soon. But the reason why they go after this is because, biologically it does make more sense. Now, the problem with this age group is that those girls have their pick of the gene pool because they are being the most desired age group, especially if you pair it with, very attractive women. So it's their choice. They have the selection. They have the upper hand. This is where the term, women choose and men chase come from, because the men are literally chasing these girls. And this age group has a very high probability of flaking and not taking it seriously and having a lot of different males in their lives that are pursuing them. So for them to not, these are the girls that you're on the dating apps with and you're trying to message them and they're flaking and they're not coming back to you and you're wondering why. And it's like, Well, because honey, she's got a lot of other options. She's got a lot of fires, irons in the fires. So you might not be on the totem pole, or she might be like shopping around. And this is what that age group can be like. So for a man, this can be really tough because they're at the mercy of being chosen. And so then you have to go into like peacocking and trying to set yourself apart from the rest and, making sure that you have all the best options for her and the best job and like who's the tallest and who's all of these other things to make you compete for the prize. And so this can be very difficult for men, especially when they're in that age group. Like if you're 18 to 30 and you're trying to date within your proper age group, you're in a very competitive pool because you're also getting older guys that are coming in there too. So you're not only competing with your fellow age group, but you're also now competing with older guys who might have more means to take a girl out. He might have more money. He might have a house. He might have, a very nice car. He might be able to give her a lifestyle that's going to set it apart. So this is where it becomes very competitive for men and very difficult for men, depending upon which age group they're going in. Now for women, just what we talked about in the opposite end, where they have to struggle as they get older and feel that they're becoming less desirable. And quite honestly, men say that. They're like, oh, I don't want a girl that's over 30. Yeah, okay, great guys, thanks. We feel really good about ourselves. But it does change the structure a little bit as women get older, where it changes the ability of how much time you have left to conceive if you're looking to have children. So for women, it's this race to try to find somebody before you hit the ages where it starts to get scary to guys. And it's really cruel. And it's very hard for women because a lot of us are just judged on our appearances and almost being looked at as like, oh, we're this vessel to carry your child. And now we're this old hat and you don't want us anymore because we're not a young, chicken anymore and it could cause complications. Or guys like, oh, I don't want a child with autism. Well, I'm just going to tell you something right now. Research shows that a lot of that actually comes from men that are older having children, not just women. So yes, women, as they get older, you can deal with, having more of a higher chance of Down syndrome or other things like that. But the older the sperm gets, that can also lead to autism as well. So just because you think that you're some silver fox and that you're 55 having your first child doesn't mean that that can't breed complications as well. So it's this unfair disadvantage that women have as they get older, where men become sexier and more distinguished and women become an old maid. So it's definitely not fair, but it's also, very difficult for guys too, because that puts them in a situation of, okay, do I go younger? Is that inappropriate if they miss their window between, 18 and 30? Or do I make it a life with somebody where I don't necessarily know if I'm going to get everything I want out of it? And I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong. I'm just giving you what the thought process is like for both genders. So let's talk about dating apps. Now, this can be very difficult for both people, but let's talk about why. So for a man, they tend to have to swipe a lot more to get a match versus a woman. And that's generally because women swipe a lot less than men do. So, just statistically, it's a lot lower of a percentage of what women will actually swipe on. I think mainly because women are very specific with what they're looking for. Men complain that women are incredibly picky. As a matchmaker, I will say yes. I think women can be very picky about a lot of things. I think men are notoriously very picky about looks. That is just a number one. Guys will tell me, doesn't matter how cool she is. If I'm not attracted to her, it's game over. And I do think that attraction gets you in the door with a man and substance keeps you there. And I think for women, it can be both. Attraction can get you in the door, but I think there are a larger percentage of women that will take substance first, or like seeing that you're a good person or seeing that you could be a good potential future husband or somebody that wants a committed relationship. And that could get you in the door over looks, depending upon the age group. I think the younger the girl, the more obsessed they are with looks. I think the older the woman, the more obsessed they are with status and what you're doing in your life, where you went to school, all of those other things. In addition to height, women with height, it's just this big obsession that is just going to probably go on for a very long time. But for men, they also have to think about what they're going to say. So I think a lot of women sit back and they're like, hey, come to me. What do you got? Show me what you got. And so the guys are having to come up with these, creative messages, or how can they stand out from the rest, or, making sure that they have an interesting profile. Whereas a girl is like, you have really cute pictures on your profile. and you look good in a bathing suit and a guy's going to swipe on you. It's like, is it fair? No. Is that the way it happens? A lot of the times. And so I think for men, they have to think about standing out, when to make the move, when to ask someone else, how to read the cues. And a lot of times they tell me that women don't give them a lot of information about if they like them or not. Like, they're talking to them, the guy's like, I don't know if she likes me. It's just these like one word responses. And the guy's like working his ass off, and the girl's just like, yeah, I don't know, I think he's boring. And it can be a very judgmental thing. So men are agonizing over the messages, when to reach out, making the first move, having to swipe a lot more, versus women on the other side. They're dealing with a lot more of an onslaught of messages. So I was on dating apps for a long time when I was a professional matchmaker, because we had partnerships with them. And I would tell you, I had thousands of messages sometimes. Like, if I didn't check them on a regular basis, there were so many. And it's just because I think a lot of guys, like especially the ones that are less desirable, will like hound every single girl. Like, they'll just send a message to everybody. So you have a bell curve, right? You have like really terrible people over here, really great people over here, and then the average people in the middle. But it seems that the really terrible people seem to take up a large space on dating apps and make it seem like that's the reality of what's going on there. I think just because they're more aggressive. I think the people that are a little bit more neutral, or I don't like to say normal because that's such a relative word, but the people that are just average and just looking for a nice person, are not going to be the loudest, are not going to be the ones attacking you the most with the most barrages of messages. But you also need to understand that as a woman, we have had to deal with our entire lives the need to feel safe, because even in this day and age, like walking home by yourself, you could get attacked and you could be murdered, and women are dealt with that all the time. I mean, I can't tell you how many times coming home late night in New York City in a cab where the guy tried to come into my house and follow me home, and I had to get physical with people. I have tasers, or going to the bank and like someone comes in there, or just like being attacked by men. I've been physically assaulted by men before, and this is not a singular story. So we're a lot more guarded, and that does take a psychological effect in how you view men's attention. And when you get on dating apps, it's like so many messages that are disgusting, like really gross. And I've had even guys ask me, oh, I'm married, can you be my toilet slave? I'm like, oh my God, I don't even want to look up what that means. And this starts to really take effect in your brain, because it starts to make you think that everybody out there is just gross, and like, why even try? Because I'm having so many negative experiences, and it's building an intense amounts of distrust, and it makes you fear for your personal safety. It makes you feel that like there's no romance left in the world, and dating apps makes you feel like it's just been stripped of all of the love and the lust and the romance that you feel when you're out in the real world and you meet eyes with a guy, and he comes over to you, and you have a drink, and you're flirting and you're touching, and all of that is missing on the dating apps. So women are just a lot more guarded, and I think men need to understand why. It's not a Me Too movement. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with, there have been a lot of assaults, and I think every woman can say that, and we just need to protect ourselves. And when we have all these guys coming at us with these like horrifying dick pics and like disgusting messages, just makes you think that there's nothing left in the world, and it just makes you really bitter and jaded. So that's part one. There's so much to unpack here, but tune in for the second part of this, where we continue the war of the sexes and trying to really break down the differences between what men are going through and what women are going through, so we can find some compassion for each other and see if we can meet in the middle.